Inflation. It's a word that pops up on the news, in conversations about groceries, and, if you're a fan of chocolate, every time you pick up a candy bar and think, wait a minute, wasn't this bigger before? Today, let's unravel the mystery of inflation and why, lately, your candy bar seems to be on a bit of a diet. Stickman is here to break it all down, one simple step at a time. Imagine Stickman strolling into the store with a spring in his step, ready for his favorite treat. He grabs a candy bar, but as he unwraps it, he pauses. Has his hand grown, or did the bar just shrink? This, friends, is not an illusion. It's a phenomenon called shrinkflation, and it's one of inflation's sneakiest tricks. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. What is inflation anyway? Simply put, inflation is the general increase in prices over time. In other words, the money in Stickman's pocket buys a little bit less each year. For decades, a little bit of inflation, say 2% per year, was pretty normal. But lately, prices have been rising faster than Stickman can jog across the checkout aisle. Stickman says, why does this happen? Picture a world where everything costs more to make. The sugar that sweetens the candy, the cocoa that gives it its rich flavor, even the fuel that delivers it to the store. If the prices of these ingredients and services go up, the candy bar must cost more too. Recently, companies like Hershey, the makers of Kit Kat and Reese's, announced price hikes, blaming the skyrocketing cost of cocoa. In 2024 and 2025, cocoa prices soared to near record highs. That's partly because of climate troubles in West Africa, where most of the world's cocoa is grown. Droughts, crop failures, and unpredictable weather made it harder and more expensive to harvest cocoa beans, squeezing supply and sending prices up. But that's only part of the story. Let's draw another arrow on our minimalist chart, pointing to tariffs. Tariffs are taxes on imported goods, sometimes put in place by governments to protect local industries, sometimes as part of broader trade negotiations. When tariffs rise, the cost of bringing in ingredients from abroad jumps too. Hershey recently projected $15 to $20 million in tariff-related costs in just one quarter. Stickman's eyebrows shoot up. That's a lot of money for chocolate. So, faced with higher costs, what's a candy maker to do? There are a few options. They can raise the price of the candy bar and risk making Stickman frown at the register. Or they can quietly shrink the bar itself, hoping Stickman won't notice. This is shrinkflation, the art of making your product a little smaller while charging the same, or sometimes even more. In 2024, for example, a popular snack cookie quietly trimmed its size from 1.5 ounces to just 1 ounce, but the price on the shelf stayed the same. That's a whopping 50% reduction. Stickman looks at his once mighty cookie in size. Less cookie, same money. But Stickman isn't alone. In fact, 75% of shoppers say they've noticed their groceries getting smaller, and nearly half, 48%, have decided to ditch a brand entirely because of shrinkflation. That's a lot of lost loyalty for a few missing bites. Shrinkflation isn't limited to candy. Chips, cereal, soap, Stickman's entire shopping cart is feeling a little lighter these days, but candy bars are where it's most noticeable. After all, who hasn't peeled back a wrapper only to find a tiny treat inside rattling around like loose change? Why do companies choose shrinkflation over simple price hikes? It's all about psychology. Studies show that shoppers react more strongly to price increases than to size reductions. In other words, we're more likely to notice a higher price tag than a slightly smaller bar. So companies hope that by quietly shaving off a few grams here and there, they can keep sales steady, even as their costs climb. But Stickman is a keen observer. He uses his stick-thin arms to measure the bar, his dotted eyes narrowing suspiciously. Aha, he thinks. They think I won't notice, but I do. And he's not alone. Thanks to social media, eagle-eyed shoppers share their discoveries, posting side-by-side photos of old and new packages, drawing arrows to highlight the missing pieces, and sometimes sparking outrage. Let's pause for a moment and ask, is shrinkflation always bad? After all, companies need to stay in business. If costs keep rising and they don't adjust, they might have to lay off workers or disappear entirely. Shrinkflation is, in a way, a survival strategy. But it can feel like a sneaky move, especially when consumers aren't told what's happening. So, what's a savvy shopper like Stickman to do? First, pay attention to the details. Look at the weight or volume listed on packages. Sometimes, a new improved or resealable bag isn't bigger at all. It's just a clever disguise. Compare prices by weight or unit, not just by the sticker on the shelf. That way, you know exactly what you're paying for. Second, consider alternatives. If your favorite brand keeps shrinking, try something new. Remember, nearly half of shoppers have already switched because of shrinkflation. Companies notice when their loyal customers walk away. Finally, don't be afraid to speak up. Companies pay attention to feedback, especially when it's loud and clear. If you miss your old, generously sized candy bar, let them know. Sometimes public pressure leads to throwback sizes or special editions. Stickman believes in the power of the people, especially when the people really want chocolate. Looking ahead, it's unlikely that shrinkflation will disappear overnight. As long as costs are volatile, thanks to climate change, tariffs, and supply chain hiccups, manufacturers will keep looking for ways to balance their books. But by staying informed, comparing products, and making your voice heard, you can outsmart shrinkflation and make the most of every snack. So next time you unwrap a candy bar and find it looking slimmer than you remember, give a knowing nod to Stickman. Inflation may be tricky, but with a sharp eye and a sense of humor, you can navigate the supermarket maze and maybe even discover a new favorite treat along the way.